Hey guys, I was reading yesterday in Mark 9, and I wanted to share that with you today. There was this man, it starts in verse 17 through and then goes on through 27, but there was this man who had a son who from birth had this deaf and dumb spirit that would often throw him in the fire or throw him in the water and just try to destroy this poor child. And I don't know how old he was now, but it says that he had had this spirit in him since he was a child. And he would often throw himself on the ground and foam at the mouth. And it was this horrible thing for this father to watch his son suffer. And he had heard of Jesus, and he came and he told Jesus, he said, if you can do anything, have compassion on us and help us. And Jesus answered, this is in verse 23, Jesus answered, if you can believe, all things are possible to him that believeth. I want to stop there a minute and bring up, this is also written in Matthew and again in Mark, a couple different places, where God says, with God, all things are possible. All things. And we need to remember that when we have desperate needs and prayers and even minor little things that we need to bring to God, all things are possible with God. All things. So Jesus told him that if you can believe, all things are possible. And in verse 24, straightway the father of the child cried out and said with tears, Lord, I believe, help my unbelief. Sometimes I deal with this. Sometimes my doubts come in, and when sickness continues or a situation continues for a long length of time, sometimes our belief drops down a little bit. And like this man said, he said, Lord, I believe, help my unbelief. And then it goes on in verse 25 to 27, how Jesus healed the boy. He healed him. And I think we need to remember that. So sometimes when we have these doubts and these lack of faith, sometimes we need to have faith, but we need to ask God to help us, help our unbelief, help our doubts and our fears. Be honest with God, because he already knows. He already knows what you think and how you feel. So be honest with him. And it's okay to say, help my unbelief, Lord. And he comes in, just like he did with this man. He said, I believe, but help my unbelief. I want to read really quick these verses in Matthew 19 and Mark 10 and Mark 14, and I'll post them down the bottom. Memorize these, write them down, and get them into your heart. God's word is so powerful. But it says, Jesus said this, with man it is impossible, but with God all things are possible. And again in Mark 10, with men it is impossible, but not with God, for with God all things are possible. And then in Mark 14, he said, Abba, Father, all things are possible unto you. Remember that. Remember that. This week and always, remember that all things are possible with God. Just believe. And when you have a little doubt, ask God to help your unbelief too. Have a good week.